Well, we'll talk about the difference between what actually is creative tension and then also the psychological tension.
Yeah, I mean, that space or that gap can feel inspiring at times, but it can also feel like frustrating too. At least that's what I find, because it can bring disappointment and pressure and collapse, and then that self-attack voice coming up.
So, clear observation, like what's happening right here, right now. Something that you could take a photograph and you'd see everything, or like a video camera would show. So, it's getting really honest about what's actually happening right here, right now. So many times, what we do as humans is, is we won't see what's right here because we have the clouded thoughts and emotions running through us and it's distorting our reality. Welcome to the Healing You Method podcast. I'm Gloria Lybecker.
And I'm Gail Donohue, and we're so glad you're here.
Yeah, today we're talking about something that touches almost everyone on a healing path. And really anyone who's trying to create change in their life. And it's that space between current reality and the end result that we truly long for.
I'm so glad that we're talking about this today, Gloria, because
Mm,
I've
okay.
been thinking about it lately. So,
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I'm looking forward to our conversation. Yeah, I mean, that space or that gap can feel inspiring at times, but it can also feel like frustrating too. At least that's what I find, because it can bring disappointment and pressure and collapse, and then that self-attack voice coming up. So I'm really happy that we're going to explore how to hold that tension because I love the way we you talk about it and we talk about it together in a way that supports growth instead of shame.
Oh, definitely. Well, we'll talk about the difference between what actually is creative tension and then also the psychological tension. And excuse me, what it looks like to truly stay present with what is true right now without using it, and this is the key, without using it as evidence against ourselves.
Mm, okay, so I'd like to hear more about like when you use that phrase current reality
Mm.
versus end result. Um, so I just was wondering, how do you, what do you mean by that? What feels important to name right away in understanding this current
Well,
reality?
one way that we could frame it up would be I like how nonviolent communication uses their tools sometimes. So they talk about making an observation, a clear observation. So a clear observation, like what's happening right here, right now. Something that you could take a photograph and you'd see everything, or like a video camera would show. So it's getting really honest about what's actually happening right here, right now. And so that's another way of really looking at your current reality because so many times what we do as humans is, is we won't see what's right here because we have the clouded thoughts and emotions running through us and it's distorting our reality. I'm wondering what you heard me just say, just so that we can kind of just what current reality is and how you can actually begin to see it and to recognize it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, well, it sounds like well, you start to question it a bit and get curious about it. First of all, but and I wonder too, is that you're not looking at it as an enemy. It's just simply factual, like as an observation, what is happening. And I'm guessing it probably means being very honest with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then there's that gap that's between, like I have this vision for what I would really like. Let's see, I'm coming up with an example. Um, I don't know why I'm going like deadpan in my mind about what an example. The example that I was thinking of is the timber frame that my husband's building me. Well, he started that 5 years ago.
Mm.
And when he first started it, I had this glorious vision in my head that always breaking ground that spring. That means that by fall I'll be into it. That was an illusion. It was not. What I can do now, even though it's been 5 years, this spring looks a lot different
Mm.
because now I can go out and I can stand out there in my current reality. I can see, well, it's not just the foundations done, it's not just the framing that's done. I mean, he's actually buttoned up a lot of the stuff, and he's even got the ceilings all now beautiful pine wood up there, just all tongue and groove, and it's gorgeous. And so I
Mm.
can see the vision is coming into reality. I still have this vision for what it's going to look like. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I have this vision of it being complete and that I'm in it and that I'm meeting with clients in it, and so I hold that vision, but then when I can look at how far I've come and even look at my current reality now, I say, well, what's my next step that I can do today, right now?
Yeah.
So there's I can actually use my current reality to inspire me to see what my next action step can be.
Mm. And then I would really like to like slow down a little bit and look at because what I heard you describe was like the current reality and then hearing that he was going to he broke ground. And then it sounds like your vision really, you got excited about your vision. And then because the timing wasn't as what you had envisioned and were thinking in your head, I imagine that, it became maybe some frustration and some old wounds that were coming up and that, it wasn't working the way, the vision wasn't coming forward the way that you wanted to. And so to me, like when I heard you talking about that, that was I was thinking of disappointment, frustration, and then you could either, in some situations you could blame the other person or blame yourself, with triggering
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So the
like
stories can start coming up. And
yeah,
that's
the
what it
story.
can trigger. It can trigger these old patterns that we have inside
Yeah,
that tend to be dormant or or unconscious at best, but they can start to actually drive our thoughts and our emotions. So yeah, there's definite disappointment. I didn't get into the building the way I wanted to. I'm still not
yeah,
out there. And
yeah,
yet, and then the thoughts could be like, oh, I'm just not important enough to spend the time, you know,
yeah.
or oh, my husband doesn't value me enough.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
get prioritized,
right.
so it's
So
like making it about me or blaming him. He's just too busy doing things for everybody else.
right, right. So that now you're getting into talking about those aspects that we named at the beginning,
Hmm.
that psychological tension. So I'm just going to name some things about what psychological tension can look like. So then
Yeah.
listeners can perhaps see it with themselves. So it's psychological tension is when the gap becomes personal. And you were naming some of those. So it sounds like inner criticism or outer criticism, but it can be inner criticism related to pressure, shame, comparison. It can get into panic or, disappointment. And some things that it could say, well, at least what I'm thinking about is because I'm not there yet, then something's wrong with me.
Hmm.
So I know, and just feeling into that now that it really ends up depleting my energy because I just end up going in a circle around something's wrong with me. I'm not doing it right. I'm not good enough. Instead of being actually take steps towards the vision that I want.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, Gloria, in just hearing about that psychological tension, can you describe what creative tension looks like for us?
Yeah. Well, it's really, um, it really created a shift inside of me when I could finally begin to truly recognize it. And so, what's so important is when you really step into that creative tension, you're being really honest, you're holding the truth. You're actually looking at your current reality and exactly where things are as they are. And there's an acceptance of things as they are rather than a judgment about them. So that's really key there. And at the same time that I'm recognizing where I'm at right now, I'm recognizing where I'm planning to go. What my intention is, what I'm devoted to. And so it allows both to be there. So another way that I would envision that is my two trees. My current reality can be my tree of knowledge, where I'm recognizing, well, this is what's here right now. And then my vision can be my tree of life, of my vision of where I'm going and what I love. And the bridge between the two of them is standing in the tension between them and recognizing the difference. And then in this moment right here, right now, what's one small step that I can see that I can take? And from there, it allows me to actually, that creates a momentum. It brings up the inner wisdom that comes from within to inspire the action that we can take.
Mm,
So it's not like I'm going to have it be a done deal right now. One small step is all it needs to take. And then one step after that, you can continue. So you can see how the creative tension, it'll continue to grow and evolve. And the more that you consistently take these actions, that's where you actually will start to grow momentum.
hmm. So it sounds like both are existing. You allow the vision, the longing to be there, but also truth and the presence. They're both existing together. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the
And
creative tension, it does say this is where I am.
mhm.
And I'm still committed to what's possible as I continue to move forward.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
what you can see the psychological tension would say.
Yeah. The psychological tension, that one to me, it says, okay, this is where I am, and I'm stuck here or I'm always here, and I'm making that mean I'm not a wrong, and I'm wrong and I'm not good enough. And
Yeah,
so with some of the things like that, really, well, let's have you talk about what for you, what does reflective, like create that reflective creative tension feel like in your body? And then I can talk about the psychological tension.
sure. Yeah, well, it feels a bit edgy, quite honestly.
Mm,
Excuse me, as I'm stepping into it, because as I first began to practice this, it was new. And when something's really new, I want to acknowledge that our nervous system, it can feel scary just because it's new, because our body likes familiarity. So just because it's new and it feels scary doesn't mean it really is. So that's why getting really honest with ourselves is important. Is, ooh, it feels edgy. That's okay. I can allow that. So it actually feels like it's stretching me. And then also I feel much more aware. I have more awareness or the alertness and but I'm present or grounded. And so it also can feel I'm open-hearted, being really honest, but it can feel a bit tender because it's, again, that newness, but it's really connected to my heart, connected to what really means something to me. And so
mm,
it's precious to me.
yeah.
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 Zipping then into that psychological tension, how might that feel for our listeners to hear?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you mentioned about, with that um, creative tension feeling new. And so, the body wants to go to something comfortable that it knows. And of course, gosh, that psychological tension is pretty, constant in my experience. So it feels like a contraction and getting small and shrinking, a sense of shrinking, pulling back,
Hmm.
a bracing, like, oh, I can't risk doing this. Um, a heaviness, quite often a heaviness, but especially in my chest. And then it's like the horse is just let out and just is racing with my brain is just racing with lots of thoughts that end up just shutting me down. And it's ends up being like a mixture of an urgency, but then with hopelessness. So it kind of like really drains my energy a
I
lot.
can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to hold this with so much care this year because I want to name the truth is that when your system is activated like that, or my system is activated like that, our system is doing its level best to protect us.
Hmm.
It's not trying to take us out. It's not trying to be mean to us or anything. It's a learned pattern to survive something that feels like it might not be survivable. And so
Yeah.
I just want to really name that with compassion, just how important when we start to go into what sounds like collapse, that the system needs care, the care circuitry to meet it right where it is without judgment, but to
Yeah.
really sit with it, to be with it, so it can
Yeah.
feel felt.
Yeah, and then like what you're naming is, something that I certainly experienced my
Yeah.
life, was where that self-attack, that attack, it then ends up, it's very clever the way it zips around to then come forward as masquerades as motivation.
Oh,
So, the things that I learned to do was like keep the pressure up and
mm,
keep moving. And no matter what, do not acknowledge that your body's exhausted. Do not acknowledge that you're speaking horribly to yourself, because that was what would like get me to get going more. And it was such a harsh voice, but it became a discipline to be able to keep going through that shame or that embarrassment. And I've realized through doing this work is that um, gentleness was actually danger, and it was being passive, and you're not good enough. You're being weak because being gentle and softness wasn't modeled as being effective.
yeah.
And so that inner attack was so familiar. And the masquerade was that it was being helpful, but it's truly isn't helpful at all. Not at
No,
all.
and what I really resonate with that, um, and for myself, it would be more of the shame spiral. I would numb out. I would be more of a shell of myself where it was really difficult to think, to even stay in a conversation. So I'd want to just kind of fade into the background and be a wallflower and, just don't look at me, please. And that's not effective. And so what I'm discovering is the more that I can have care for myself, and it's been a journey because nobody beat me up worse than me. But to
Yeah.
develop where actually I wrote a song the other day and it's called I'm Falling in Love with Myself. And it's like, ooh, isn't that different? And yet to be at that place, it's like there were gentle little steps of recognizing the truth of who I am and also recognizing the truth of the terrain. Just because there's a culture around you that says being tough and being harsh and being loud or whatever it is in your environment, that's the way to be. It doesn't make it true.
Mhm.
And so for me to develop my ability, my capacity to stay curious and interested, and I can be quiet and I can be gentle and I can stay present and I can stay a part of the conversation. So when we can stay in relationship first with ourselves, it will empower us to be able to stay in relationship and conversation with others as well. And it does require practice, really coming back to your heart, really taking the time, allowing that care circuitry to nourish all of you. We need that fear circuitry, need that rage circuitry. All of those different circuits matter, and they all work well together when the care circuitry is underneath them, supporting that seeking circuitry as well. So it's kind of like seeing the two trees in another lens, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And there's a softness in your face as I'm talking that I'm just wanting to name. It's just so beautiful.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just, reflecting on the balance of my life, not being in a place where um, there was the safety in gentleness.
Hmm.
The our society doesn't celebrate that. It celebrates doing more, pushing more, ignoring your body. So there, has not been as many moments when
Yeah.
I could see my nervous system, or recognize my nervous system, or help it learn to see that there wasn't a threat there. And there's one thing that is so true, is that I wouldn't have been able to do this work if I hadn't met this, be in this place of being able to access my nervous system, not to slow it down and stop it interpreting everything as a threat. If I hadn't met people like you, Gloria, and people in the community doing this kind of work, you need other people around you to help you do it, so
Yeah.
that you can have some co-regulation. That what we always say, healing is, relational. And it's so, so true, to be
Yeah.
able to have that accompaniment, so that you can start to see your nervous system and help it to interpret situations not as a threat anymore.
Yeah.
And so that really helped me to shift from the forcing, and start to listening. And I'm still practicing and doing it more, that's for sure. But, meeting ourselves with more compassion and honesty without making it wrong. Gosh, it's, just trying to park that loop of what we learned so well to do. Well, I
Well,
learned so well to do.
we all do learn this. We all experience this in our own unique way. You
Yeah.
know, these are the patterns that are here in our world. And when we can begin to recognize them, we can be empowered to be in choice rather than an autopilot. And I always want to make sure that I address the harshness or the judgments with compassion and to recognize, well, of course they do that. Of
Mhm.
course we learned that. And we can recognize that without being mean to ourselves,
Yeah.
without,
Yeah.
being cruel to ourselves.
Yeah.
And we that helps us to recognize others without that judgment too, which that does interrupt the loop. And that's what compassion does. It's radical how it does that.
It
And,
is totally radical. Yeah.
and there
And
are more communities like that growing
mhm.
where people are waking up to the burnout it causes and the conditioning that it's created and the havoc it's made in that ripple effect of what has been.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as we wake up more and more, we can gather together and we can allow that new wave to begin to be felt in our world.
Yeah. Yeah. So, maybe at this point I could offer some possible responses that people could look at doing if they notice that they've moved into that psychological tension, and what could help them to come back to present. So there's about six of them that I'm thinking of right now that people could consider doing and practicing. One would be to pause before problem solving. Just slow it down and take a breath. That
Yeah.
that would be one response. Another would be to then invite yourself to come to your body and your breath, just to orientate to that body and breath, instead of, what might be happening externally. And then aligned with what you mention often, Gloria, that looking at the truth and the honesty. So the invitation to notice the story
Mhm.
without becoming the story. So we don't get wrapped up in that story again. And naming the truth, naming in this moment what is true. And you talked about that next step. And if you have a sense that you're in that psychological tension there, make that next step even smaller. It doesn't have to be a big action step towards this vision. It can just be something small.
Yeah.
And then, coming back to the sixth one is like coming back to the present instead of continuing to catastrophize what could be happening, thinking about the future with that judgmental voice happening. So, those are some things that our audience could consider doing. And so, Gloria, I love when you look at telling the truth about the current reality. So, what kinds of things could you share with our audience about looking at the truth without it going into that self-judgment? What would be some points that we could consider?
Well, when we can look at the truth, it's hard to actually name that without some type of a context. But
Mm,
there's a gap between what you're seeing and what you'd like to see. You can begin to recognize that the gap isn't failure, that the gap is actually revealing to you what an action step might look like. You know, so recognizing the perception may be coming from your conditioned reality. So, what is the lens you're looking through? So, when we slow it down enough to come into our heart, that sets the stage for the curiosity and the gentleness to emerge. Recognize if I'm coming into looking at my current reality and my body's like this and I'm already grumpy, well,
yeah.
then what's running me? I need to get honest with myself. Which tree is that? It was that tree of knowledge where it's judgmental. It's grumpy. Well, then what's under the grumpiness? When I can get curious about that, it's going to shift me back to my heart. And so it's a practice of noticing, coming back to the heart over and over and over, because there can be layers in your reality, the current reality that you don't like.
Hmm.
It's okay not to like it. I'm not saying not to like it, but be honest about it. So that honesty is what really cuts through. The truth is really what sets us free. When we get really honest with ourselves, we can stay present. Even when we're sad, it's okay. Or we're mad, it's okay. Whatever we're feeling, it's okay. Because all of those emotions, all that circuitry matters. And it has a message for us, but we don't have to be controlled by it.
Hmm.
You know, I like to envision it as a wild horse, maybe, where we can actually gentle it by staying present with it, even though it might be rearing up. It's okay. I don't have to be scared of it. I can stay present with it. It's alive. Yeah.
Hmm.
So just really noticing and slowing down, coming back to your heart, and the practice of allowing what is, naming what is in the moment.
Hmm.
It softens the edges of that then.
Yeah, softens. Well, maybe we could just take a moment right now and talk about this in our own life in this moment. If for our listeners, if you might slow down here and notice where there might be a gap right now between your current reality and the end result you're looking for, you're longing for.
Mm.
It could be in your healing. It could be in your relationships or your body, your work, the work you're doing in the world, or even like the way you want to feel about yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just noticing that, um, and staying present with it, allowing that to be what it is.
Hmm.
And notice what happens as you just allow it to be there. Mhm.
And, an invitation to, um, can I be here right now with both these situations at the same time without making myself wrong. And just took a big breath in saying that, just because I noticed in my body, I just took a big breath automatically, just in having that sense of I'm I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Wow, you can't get you wrong. That's true. That is a truth.
Yeah,
Yeah, we get to be who we really are. We don't have to be anyone else. And we don't
yeah.
have to please anyone else too. We can consider others, but it's really important to be honest with ourselves first. As you were saying,
Well, the end result, your current reality, and then having that end result that you're wanting. So, um, we were just sort of talking about looking at what's true right now, and then we can have, oh gosh, I didn't get everything done that I was supposed to be done yesterday. And I don't have enough time today, versus like the end result. What do I want there? What vision is it that I want? Well, I want to be moving forward to finish a project. But then, as you talk about, Gloria, so beautifully, is, coming into your heart and holding yourself there with kindness and compassion. And yeah, it's true. Didn't get as much done yesterday. And it's also true that you want to get this project going and finishing it. But it's I just want to stay with that vision of moving forward with love and honesty. And then, as we've talked about, what would be that next step that I could do?
yeah. Well, what I'm hearing you share as you share that, thank you for that, is what we typically can do is when we have this vision of what we want and we didn't get as much done as we wanted to, that's how we use it as a weapon against ourselves. To
Mhm.
recognize that, when we recognize, ooh, wait a minute, I'm starting to use this as a weapon against myself. And maybe we'll have another conversation around this, but about when we can have true appreciation for how far we've come. That's another way that you can use these, what I call circles or the two trees, is I can look at my current reality. I can see how far I've come from when I first started. And I'm like, oh, wow, like even using the timber frame, how far it's come.
Yeah. And how
It's
often do we do that? We don't,
well, we tend to gloss over that because
yeah, we look at what hasn't been done.
yeah, and so it again, it's like perspective shifts that we can choose when we recognize them. So the key is really one of the biggest or deepest practices for healing, maybe just learning how to stay present in the tension of
Mhm, mhm.
becoming without abandoning ourselves along the way, but to recognize that opportunity to just be with it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I think we get attached to the outcome. So,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And if we can really, when we stop to get that honesty there, and look at it's like that psychological tension, and look at what's happening with my body here. Are my shoulders really tight? Am I breathing, like little sips of air? And what do I feel in my heart? Or can I access my heart? And do I feel pressure, or do I feel openness and possibility? That can give you an indication. And then, just like, if you see that, okay, I'm in this psychological tension, so just recognize that this is the self-attack that's in action here, and we want to choose to move towards that creative tension that comes from the presence of being aligned with your heart.
mm,
Yeah. And bring yourself home to your heart.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
that phrase. Yeah,
Yeah.
coming home to yourself.
Yeah.
So I want to take a moment and thank each of you for taking time to be with us today. I've really enjoyed this conversation a lot. And if this conversation has supported you, we'd love it if you'd follow the show, leave us a review, or share it with someone who's in a tender season of transition.
And next week, we're back for a duo episode with Gloria and I weaving together the three golden threads from our last conversations. One conversation was moving from burnout to inner alignment. The other conversation was looking at exploring nervous system safety and sacred ceremony. And then our conversation from today, how we could stay present with the current reality while still honoring the end result we long for.
You can think of this as your integration download with clear takeaways, some grounded reflections, and the practices that we trust will actually stick.
Until then, take gentle care of yourself and remember all healing is relational.